Walker from Fairlands Elementary School. Roxy and I just got to Sunol Regional Park, and I wanted to let you know what some of the cool things are that you could find here in the park, so that way maybe you and your family will decide to come down here one day, maybe take a break, come out, get some fresh air, and see what you can see out in nature. So I do come here a lot, and one of the favorite hikes that I like to do involves getting to the end of the road. So once you pay at the gate and you come all the way down, just keep driving past a couple of parking areas and you get to this fork in the road right here. You can go either way and just look for parking. And once you find parking, keep heading in the same direction that this road goes. In other words, you're just going to keep heading all the way until you get to what's called the Alameda Creek Trail. I'll show you what it looks like when we get down there. Let's go. So we're now at the end of the road that I was talking about. So that trail right there, just behind that gate, that's the trail that leads down to the Alameda Creek Trail. So that's where we're headed. And I highly recommend that if you and your family want to go hiking, that's a great place to start. Once you're in the middle of the bridge, you'll realize that's why it's called the Alameda Creek Trail, because it goes right alongside Alameda Creek. And there's Alameda Creek. On the other side, there's Roxy. So I've been hiking this trail a lot, and sometimes during the winter time when there's a lot of rain, the water is up really, really high into all of these trees that you see here on the left and right of the creek. But right now, the water's not too high, but it's also not too low. It's kind of a perfect amount of water right now. Once we're out on the trail, I always let Roxy off leash because she's well enough behaved anyway that she doesn't get into trouble. But I wanted to show you this. This plant right here is something that you need to know about if you're going to go hiking out here. Because this, my friends, is poison oak. So notice that there's 3 leaves grouped together. Right now there's some that are kind of red. Like there's some that are red, and there's some that are green. And they're also very shiny right now in the sun. But that is poison oak. So if you see that, please don't touch it, because you'll probably get a rash. I took a little side trail off of the main trail, and Roxy kind of ran ahead of me. Oh my, no, she's telling me something. But she ran ahead of me, and by the time I caught up with her, she had already jumped in the water and started swimming. Yeah, so she's kind of nuts about swimming. But this water actually flows to a reservoir downstream where it actually is sent to the city of San Francisco. This water is actually owned by the San Francisco Water Company. And so it actually is not to be contacted by humans. Humans are not supposed to be swimming in it. But animals, well, debatable. Roxy would definitely say that she's allowed to because, you know, she's special. Anyway, let me just throw the stick for Roxy for a second here, and we can get back on our way. And there's Roxy's fun for the day. All right, let's get going, crazy girl. We're here to hike, not swim. So the reason I went off the trail was because I was going to take a moment to stop and point out some of these trees here, because most of these trees in this area are actually oak trees. So as you're walking along and you see all these really big, beautiful trees, like this giant one right here behind me, those are all oak trees. And if we look at it up close, you can see right here, here's some oak leaves. These are actually live oak. So this is a live oak tree that's right here. And at this time of year, you're not going to see many acorns, but you are going to see, here's a good example right here, you are going to see what will eventually become the acorns. So these are the places where the flowers are starting to form, right there. And so later on in the year, when those flowers get pollinated and all of that, then they'll turn into the fruit. The fruit, of course, is the acorn. So there you go. So just as I said, most of the trees are oak trees, but this one right here behind me, this is actually a buckeye tree. And if we go up close, you can see what these leaves look like. They're really small right now because it's spring, but they just kind of fan out. There's 5 of them that fan out from one little stem. So that's one of the ways that you can identify it. I also think it's pretty easy to identify it by just simply looking at it, because the way it's shaped, they're always this like a umbrella kind of a shape to it. Whereas the oak trees, here's a crazy oak right behind me. The oak trees are the ones that are kind of twisty and tall. In fact, this one is particularly tall behind me. And so All those other trees up there in the background behind me right now, those are all the oak trees. So here's a good reason why I love this hike. What a beautiful view, isn't it? And those clouds up there, even though they look a little daunting, kind of makes it even prettier. And back on the job, let's go. One of my favorite things to do on this hike is to look at all the places where you can see evidence of erosion and weathering and changes that the earth has gone through. So up here, you can see how the rocks have just been crumbling away, and if you look at the bottom of the little cliff, back in there, there's a whole bunch of loose rocks. So you can see where the rocks have come from. And then of course, if they get knocked all the way down and they go to the other side of the creek, the other side of the road here, then they're gonna head down into the creek. And that's why you find so many different kinds of rocks in the creek, because they do come from up higher on the mountains. With knowing, this plant is called cowboy cologne, or at least that's its common name. In reality, the plant's called Artemisia, but the common name, like I say, is cowboy cologne. And the reason is pretty apparent once you wipe your hand on it, and give it a little sniff. It's very, very fragrant. So if you forgot to take a shower and you're hiking with some people and you don't really want them to have to smell you and, be kind of disgusted by it, well, get some cowboy cologne on your hands and rub it around and you'll be smelling like a cowboy in no time. Wait, is that a good thing to be smelling like a cowboy? I don't know. That's up to you to decide. Well, this is awesome. It just started rain, so Roxy and I are taking shelter under another kind of a tree. This is a bay tree, and there's some bay leaves right here behind me, so you can see what they look like. Long, skinny. And your parents probably know a little bit about this because literally this is a kind that you can use for cooking. So if you wanted to smell it, you just want to bend the leaves a little bit. Sorry, there's my hand. Bend the leaves a little bit, kind of crack it open and then take a whiff. It smells kind of like spaghetti sauce if you put bay leaves in your spaghetti sauce, that is. Anyway, so we're just going to hang out here in the shelter of this tree. So this tree is a good choice because it's all leafed out right now. As you can see, it has a pretty thick canopy, well, thick-ish. That's as good as it gets right now. So we are taking some shelter until the little storm passes. Okay, bye. There's something awesome going on behind my head here. There's a branch that doesn't have very much bark on it. Do you see which one I mean? I'm gonna see if I can point to it. That one, right there. And do you see all the little holes in it? And if you look closely, do you know what's inside all those holes? Some acorns. Check it out. So do you see what's behind me here? Those are acorns in the bark of this tree. Now, I thought acorns grew at the end of a branch, like regular fruit. Yeah, it does. This is not something that occurs by the tree doing it. This is something that occurs because an animal does it. There's a bird called an acorn woodpecker. And the reason it's called an acorn woodpecker is because it collects acorns. But here's the awesome thing. It doesn't eat the acorns. The bird drills a hole with its beak, drills a hole, and picks up acorns, shoves the acorns into the holes. And then, this is the most awesome part, it waits. And after a period of time, if they're lucky, a certain kind of critter is gonna come by. I'm not even sure what it is. I would imagine it's probably a beetle of some sort. Something, anyway, lays eggs inside the holes where all of these acorns are. And then, once the larvae hatch out from the eggs, and the larvae start eating the rotten acorns, guess who comes back? So the acorn woodpeckers, just make sure you understand this. The acorn woodpeckers do not eat acorns. The acorn woodpeckers are ranchers, not farmers. Farmers grow stuff like plants, but ranchers grow stuff like animals. So the acorn woodpecker is actually a rancher, and they, on purpose, grow animals. They grow beetle grubs, they grow bugs, they grow larvae, in other words, so that way they can eat it later on. That right there is pretty awesome. So it's raining again, and this time we're taking shelter under another oak tree. This is a live oak tree. But on my way, I found something that I wanted to show you. So that right there, no, that right there. These are the leaves of the other kind of oak tree that you find a lot of here. And these are the leaves of a valley oak tree. So that tree that had the acorn woodpecker holes all over it and the acorn shoved in it, that was a valley oak. And so, like I say, these are the leaves then of a valley oak. You can kind of remember it because it kind of looks like all those little dents in the leaf is kind of like valleys, right? So that's kind of how I remember anyway, that it's called a valley oak. And then again, this oak leaf, these right here, with kind of the sharp spikes on the edges. Can you see this? Really good. Ouch, ouch, ouch. So those are the, this is a coast live oak tree. And can you hear the rain? The rain is definitely coming down right now. We are taking a little break. There, I think you can see it now. It is really raining. So we are still hanging out under our tree and waiting for the rain to stop. Here's the stick, there's the dog, and there's the excitement. Okay, ready, Rock? Ready? Ready? Was that super fun or what? Thanks for throwing it to me. What a good girl. Here you go, Rock. Ready? Ready? Properly. And throw it. Throw it to me. Nope, too far. Can't reach. Gotta bring it closer. Thank you. Okay, ready? Stick. And by the way, the whole reason why Roxy wears that backpack, so that way, if she ends up going to the bathroom, you know, and I pick it up and put it in a little baggie, I make her carry it out. Ha! I mean, she's the one that brought it here to begin with, right? So I think it's pretty genius. Here we go, Rox. Ready? Go get it. Go get it. So it's still raining a whole bunch, but Roxy and I decided to leave the shelter of our tree and continue our hike. But I came across a plant down there that I'm going to go dash out and film in just a second that I want to show you because it's one of my favorite plants. It's this plant. This plant is called Sticky Monkey. Yes, I said Sticky Monkey. And it's a pretty cool plant. I actually have them in my front yard where I have a lot of other native plants, but I'm gonna pick one leaf and show you what you can do with it. So I picked a leaf, and the reason why it's called Sticky Monkey is because literally it's a little bit sticky. So if I put it on as jewelry, my ear, it's probably not gonna stick so well. There, it's hanging on barely because of the rain, it's all wet. But it is kind of a fun plant. So again, it's called Sticky Monkey, and I found it just along the sunny part right here on the edge of the trail. So one of the most awesome things about it raining right now is that there's some runoff. So see how behind me here along the trail, there's a bunch of water that's collecting. Well, here's what it looks like up close. So when we look at it up close, you can actually see little tiny specks of sand and other sediment that is washing down. See how right in the middle of the screen right now, it almost looks like there's white lines. Well, that's just sediment. That's little tiny particles of clay that's just being washed away. It's being carried away. So we have erosion happening right here. Remember, the word erosion is referring to the carrying away of sediment. There's some up close. You can even see bigger chunks floating by every now and then. Thanks, Roxy. So you can see the chunks floating away. And like I say, that is called erosion. There's a little chunk up there that was just moving along. Here's a spot with even more erosion happening a little bit faster. You can see the water rushing by, carrying away all the little particles of clay. And here comes Roxy again to inspect things and be involved. Thanks, Rox. And my favorite thing about watching the water roll by is to then see where it's going. So this is the place where that last little bit of water is headed. It's going down, 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 down into a pipe or something, going down that hole. And then there's also water coming from the other side that's also going down the hole. So now I'm thinking, if I look across the trail here, there's probably gonna be something over there. Let's check it out. There it is, way down there. That's where the water is coming out. And then from there, it's washing all the way down into Alameda Creek, which is down at the bottom of this hill. So this plant here is called lupin. In Texas, we had the same flower, but we had a different name for it. It was called bluebonnets. So this is what it looks like. That is a lupin. So once you get to this gate, I think this is the third gate that you get to, you know that you're almost at Little Yosemite. So once you see this, you know you're close. It's just up around that corner. So, oh, Roxy just opened up the gate for herself. Okay, awesome. So let's go, we're almost there. So this is the place that's called Little Yosemite. And you'll see why in just a moment. So I had to put the dog on a leash, otherwise she will just jump down there. But that is what we call Little Yosemite. So if you go upstream a little bit, back up in there, there's some really cool places where their rocks are really pretty. The water coming over the rocks. So you can walk down to the creek here. And like I said before though, you're not to be swimming in this water. But it is fun to go down closer and you can kind of hop over the boulders carefully, of course, and with your parents' permission, and head upstream a little bit to explore quite a beautiful, beautiful area. So on the other side of the road from where the creek is and where the Little Yosemite area is, there is a bathroom back up in there. But then there's this trail that goes on past this picnic table. I always like to do this trail as a loop, and so I always go back to the car this way. But of course, if you don't want to do a loop, you could just go up and back on that same trail that we were just on. So I always call this part of the trail the really hard part. Sorry, I need to keep looking down so I don't crash. But yeah, so it does get a little bit steep up ahead, but if your old lady science teacher can do it, then by golly, you can do it too. So have fun, power through it. So I'm pretending like I'm stopping to show you how beautiful it is right here. But really, I'm stopping because I'm out of breath and I need to stop and catch a breath. So like I say, I'm pretending like, oh, look how beautiful this is. Oh, look, this is called grass, boys and girls. Those are called spiky pokey plants. I don't know, but anyway, it is kind of pretty, you gotta admit. Definitely worth the trouble to get up here. I'll move slower because you might be getting car sick. Okay. All right, so we're still heading up. Once we get up there, there will be an awesome view. So I'll show you that in just a minute. When you get to the top of that steep part and it starts to flatten out up here, you just want to stay left. So you stay left, that's the direction of the creek. The creek is over yonder, way over there. So you just stay towards the creek and then you'll end up getting back to your car. So we're headed up there a ways. And once we get up there, that's where we're gonna have the awesome view. But check out the almost awesome view so far. Kind of awesome. And way back there, the sun's even shining. Yippee! Okay, here's one of my favorite things about nature. That you could be looking at the same exact thing that you were looking at before, but it could be very, very different because remember, things are going to adapt to wherever they are. So can you recognize this little purple, cute little purple flower? And by little, I mean, that's my giant hand. This is a very little version. I mean, this whole thing is like as big as a finger. That's the same plant that we saw a minute ago. That's called lupin, the Texas bluebonnets if we were in Texas. But here, let me show you what this area looks like. Here, you get lots of sun when the sun is shining. There's no shade right here. That other place where we were was a place where it was a lot more shaded, a lot cooler, I would imagine. And so this area, where there's not a lot of shade, means the plants have to adapt to an area where it's much drier, much hotter. So looking back down at these plants, notice not only is the whole thing just tiny, but look how tiny those little leaves are. So the whole thing is now very specially adapted to be able to survive where it's hotter. So the smaller leaves are going to allow for way less evaporation of the water that's inside the plant, so that way the plant can actually survive. Pretty cool stuff. Well, when you look really closely at stuff, you can find some really cool things. Here's a lupin where the flowers have already been pollinated and turned into fruits. So once these little pods mature and they pop open, they're going to spread their seeds. Most likely it's going to tumble downhill. This is a steep hill right here in front of me. So it's going to tumble down this hill and plant itself somewhere wherever those seeds land. But you see, that's the whole point, right? That now the plants that grow from those seeds are now going to have the same characteristics that that plant has, which means that the baby plants are going to be much more likely to also be small with those small leaves and all that kind of stuff. So that way it too is going to be well adapted for this particular microclimate, this particular little habitat right here where it gets really, really hot and sunny. Wow, how cool is that view? There's also something really interesting over there. That looks like that area right there where it looks like there's been some digging or some building or something going on. Well, that's actually Calaveras Reservoir. And Calaveras Reservoir recently underwent an expansion where they actually raised the dam. The little green part that right now is right smack in the middle of the screen, that's actually the dam. So they rebuilt the dam a little bit higher so that way they could hold back more water. And then that water is what they release down into Alameda Creek. Now the beginning of that whole water story though is that it actually starts up in the Sierras. The water actually comes from Hetch Hetchy Reservoir, which is just north of Yosemite Valley in Yosemite National Park. Hetch Hetchy Reservoir was built around the 1900s, like right around the turn of the century to the 1900s, I think is when they started building it. I think they finished it around 1925 or something like that. But point is that that's something that John Muir, the famous naturalist, he was actually fighting against that because they flooded Hetch Hetchy Valley, which is a valley very similar in its beauty and its grandeur. Pretty awesome place, in other words. They flooded Hetch Hetchy Valley in order to make that reservoir. And John Muir was fighting it tooth and nail. He was really, really trying to get him to not do that, to not build the dam there, to not flood the valley. But in the end, the San Francisco Water Company won because they have all these people who live in San Francisco who needed water. And so they were granted special permission to build that, even though it was in a national park, which is kind of crazy. Like you wouldn't do that these days, that's for sure. But anyways, the water comes from Hetch Hetchy. It goes to the reservoir over there, right over there. And then from there, it gets pumped down Alameda Creek and pumped out through Niles Canyon out towards Fremont. And from there, it's put into pipes, shipped underneath the Dumbarton Bridge in pipes. And then once you're on the other side of the bay, over right next to Highway 280, then the water is pumped into Crystal Springs reservoirs. And there's a couple of reservoirs that go up and along the peninsula headed to San Francisco. And that is what happens to this water in Alameda Creek. So this is why I hike, to get to a really cool place like this, to look out and see everything. Hey Roxy, come back here. Come here. See those cows ahead? Cows and Roxy do not mix. She doesn't really care about them, but for some reason they always charge her. So I need to get her back here and put her on a leash. So now she's on a leash. So now as we get closer, I'll film so that way you can see why it is that I put her on a leash. So it's very likely that if you go hiking along here, that you too will encounter some cows. So you do have to be a little cautious. See how there's a mama with the baby. So those are always the ones to look out for, because the mamas can be a little bit protective of their children, as I'm sure you've noticed in humans as well, right? But we just want to make sure that we're giving her some space, but also at the same time, if she's not going to move and we have no choice, but we need to walk by her, then we need to be kind of authoritative. We need to sound like we know what we're doing, and we just need to tell her to move. Now, I'm not really a rancher. I don't really know how to talk to cows, But I'm just gonna pretend like I know what I'm doing, and then it all kind of works out. So let's see it in action. Thank you, Roxy, for not going in the nasty mud on either side of this little walkway. Okay, move. Hey, hey, move. Hey, get on, go. Okay, we're being stared at by the cow. It's not working. Apparently this cow does not speak this language. Hey, let's go. Hey. Actually, I need to clap my hands, so I'm putting down the phone for just a second. Get. There we go. Yep. Go. Go. Hit. So that white one followed us a little bit, but hi. I hope that it's finally going to leave us alone. But anyway, we made it through. So we acted like we knew what we were doing. I did say get and hit and stuff like that a lot. And the cows did finally move out of the way. But it's really weird. For some reason, they always get a little threatened by Roxy. But it doesn't seem like other people and other dogs have that same problem. So I don't know. Maybe they just think she's a cow and they're like, why is that human hanging out with one of our own? Even though she's not a cow, she's a dog, but whatever. Okay, now back to the hike. There's something I haven't seen all day, the sun. So I'm gonna sit here for just a minute, let my damp hair and my damp clothing and my damp dog, who's over there somewhere, there she is. I'll let all of us damp things dry out for a few minutes and head on down the trail. So while I'm sitting here enjoying the sun for once, I wanted to point out something that I love. This is like one of my favorite things about looking out at a hill and a valley and all of this kind of stuff. There's something really, really cool. So you notice across the valley, oh brother, do you see Roxy down there? Hello, Roxy. She'll come up. But way over there across the valley, it's kind of shaded right now. But that's my point. It's shaded. And can you tell what's growing all over the hillsides there where it's all shaded? Might be a little hard to see, but it's trees. Now, on this side over here where it's sunny, sure, we have a couple trees every now and then. But mostly we have this open space, the grassland with all these weird, mutant, tiny little plants, right? And that's my point, because the thing is that this slope on this side over here is called south facing. The sun is in the south part of the sky, right there over my shoulder. So this slope, the ground right here, is facing the sun. It's a south facing slope. But on that side over there, on that side of the canyon, that's a north facing slope. So that side of the slope, that side of the canyon, is in the shade all the time. So guess what that means for water usage? Over here, the water gets used, it gets evaporated, it's gone. But over on that side, the water stays around, right? Which is then allowing all of those trees and plants and everything else to be growing so lush over there on that side. One way that you can demonstrate this is that, this is not gonna work super well. Ooh, it's kind of working. So you're gonna take your hands like this, and this hand right here is facing the sun. So that's my south facing slope. Ooh, and you know what? I can even feel it right now. I can tell that hand is actually nice and warm. And then on this hand, so now I've got my two hands facing each other, but the hand over here, where the palm is facing north, it's facing away from the sun right now, it's totally cool, it's totally shaded. It's just like it is in real life. Kind of cool, huh? So this might be a slightly better view of what I was just talking about. In the middle of the screen right now, that is a shaded hillside that's all covered in trees. And then as I pan over here, you can see the part that's facing fully into the sun, even way up there on that hill up there, facing fully into the sun, you see all the grassland, the places where water is hard to come by. The water gets dried out really fast. And so you have a totally different kind of plants growing on the south facing slope versus the north facing slope. So we're coming up on another trail junction here. I love this one though, it's so pretty with these big giant oak trees here. But what I like to do is to go straight here, and that takes me back down to the creek back near where I parked my car. Or you could go here off to the left, and then that takes you right back to the beginning of the Alameda Creek Trail. But like I say, I'm gonna be going straight, which is right here underneath the trees. And this is gonna lead me down to the creek on this side of the creek. And then I'll be able to get back to my car. One reason why I like going this way is because there's some pretty cool rocks over here. So these rocks right here are covered in lichen. So this greenish stuff, this light green stuff, it almost looks white right here. This stuff here is lichen. There is also some moss, that's this darker green stuff here. And hey, look, what's that plant, everybody? Little poison oak, right? Sure. But these rocks are pretty cool looking rocks, and there's a place up here where you can actually see California's state rock. This rock right here in the middle of the screen is green. So the other rock I was just showing you was green because there was something green on it. But this rock is green because it's a green rock. I'll show you some more in just a second. So there's some more of this green rock. So what's the deal? Why am I freaking out so much about this green rock? Well, because that's California's state rock. Who even knew that California had a state rock, right? And some of you might say, and do I care? Well, yes, of course you care, because I care and I think it's cool. Therefore, you care. But at any rate, so there are a bunch of little pieces of that rock around here, so it's kind of cool to find the little pieces. I do want to caution you though, as I'm sure you know, that you're not supposed to take things from a park, right? This is a public park, so everything here is for everybody to enjoy. That means even the little tiny pieces of California state rock, we want those to be here for the other people who come visit. So these rocks have broken off from up higher on the hill there where I was just standing. And so now I'm looking down here on the ground, and there are a couple of pieces here. There's a tiny little, really tiny little dude. Look, it's so cute. Just a little tiny green rock. Okay, now I've really found a jackpot. Look, here's one that has kind of broken apart. See how it's all super flaky, really shiny, really pretty. I love that, so pretty. And so then there's all these little pieces right here. So these are definitely serpentinite, nice and smooth, shiny, very cool. So in this little spot right here, in the middle of the trail, there's a whole bunch of little bits of serpentinite. So I was just gonna show you some of them like that. So there's a little green rock, that's serpentinite. So it's really cool. I love the way it feels. Like I said, it feels really silky. I don't know if that makes sense to say that a rock could be silky, but maybe you can tell how shiny it is. Kind of a cool little thing. So anyway, just something kind of fun, something kind of cool, and maybe something that you didn't know before. California state rock, serpentinite. It's green. We're almost at the end, but this one little part of the trail has almost all the plants and things that we were just looking at. So see if you can review a little bit. So what's this one? The long skinny leaves. If we smell it, very, very fragrant, almost reminiscent of spaghetti sauce. Does that ring any bells? Let's see. There's some other plants here. How about this one? These are also long skinny leaves, but these are, oops, sorry, you can't see it. These are also long skinny leaves, but these are very sticky. So if you touch them like that, it sticks to your finger, see? Touching, it sticks. And then there, it just came off my finger. What was that one called? Then there's this tree here, which is a big tree. It's this big one behind me. But the leaves, these are kind of curled, but if I show you the backside, the edges, see, are kind of sharp and pointy. What was that one? And then there's another one. This one right here is that plant that, if you're a little bit stinky, you could rub this all over you, and then, well, then you still might be stinky, but it'll be a different kind of stinky, and maybe that'll be a more pleasant stinky than the original stinkiness. But anyway, so what is that one called? The answers will be revealed in a minute. This little stretch really is a jackpot. Look, this is that other tree that I showed you a while ago. And before it was a really big one. And this one though is a really little one. But still, what do you think that one is? Do you remember? It was way back at the beginning. And the last important plant that I wanted to remind you of is this one. And if you look up close, these are the ones that have these leaves in groups of 3. So there's actually a saying to help you remember. Leaves of 3, let them be. But, and here's a catch, and I can't find any of these to show you, but leaves of 3, let them be. But if it's hairy, it's a berry. Because there can be berry plants like blackberries that just kind of grow wild all over the place. And if I could find some, I will show you. But they have little thorns all along their stems, like little pokey, hairy kind of things. And they also have leaves in groups of 3. Therefore, we say leaves of 3, let them be, thinking that it might be, wait, not that, there, no, not that, there, poison oak. Oops, I gave it away, but I think you knew that anyway. So, leaves of 3, let them be, but if it's hairy, it's a berry. Aha, I found some, check it out. Leaves of 3, let them be, right? So you look at this and you're like, what? There's leaves that are in groups of 3, like right here, 1, 2, 3, but look closely, see the prickles on the stem right there, the thorns, and on the back side here, there's little thorns all over it. So leaves of 3, let them be, but if it's hairy, it's a berry. So you're looking at a big blackberry bramble right here. So this is just a big berry bush. You still don't necessarily want to get in it, right? Because that would hurt. Jeez, look at these thorns right here. Yeah, no, like here for scale, that's my finger. Like those are giant. These are very, very big thorns. So you still don't really want to tangle with it, like literally, because you will literally get tangled, but at least you won't get a rash, right? You'll end up bloody, which, is that really better? I don't think so. So let's stay away from both poison oak and any kind of plant that has the potential to draw blood. Good tip, your tip of the day. You're welcome. And hey, one more thing about poison oak. Sorry for being all crazy about poison oak, but let's just say I've had some experience with it. But here's the deal, that even though there's barely any leaves coming out, you could still get poison oak. See this stem right here? There's not even any leaves on it, but it still has that oil. It still has that ureshol. So if you touch it, you could still get it on your skin. It could still be absorbed into your skin, where it would then cause you some problems. Some people are actually immune to poison oak. I used to be immune to poison oak until, guess what? I wasn't anymore. And one day, all of a sudden, I was touching poison oak one day, and then the next day I had a rash. But the weird thing is that the rash comes out in weird places. Like I had it right here across my face. Really? Like, how did I touch the poison oak there? No, that's not what happens. It's just that I do rub my face a lot. And so that skin right there probably just got a little sensitive. Hi, Roxy. So that skin there was a little sensitive, and so that's why I ended up getting the poison oak there. So kind of strange, but true about poison oak, that it'll show up in different places than you touch it. So just kind of think about that and be careful. And wash your hands and wash your feet. I mean, not your feet. Your feet are probably in shoes. Wash your legs once you get home. Wash your dog. Wash your dog's backpack if your dog wears a backpack like mine does. And you can avoid it. Definitely, you can avoid it. But you do want to wash with cold water because warm water will open up your pores, and then that could just cause the ureshol to soak into your skin even more so than it would have. So wash with cold water, lots of soap, you'll be fine. So remember, even if you find really cool stuff and you're like, I really want to keep it, the best thing to do is to take only pictures and leave only footprints. So that way you are leaving behind the natural area just like it was when you got there, so that way other people can enjoy it too. That's the right thing to do. So we're at the end of the hike, or almost the end. We still have to get down to the car, but I always love going this way because then we can end up at this bridge. So we are about to cross back over Alameda Creek to the other side, and find our car and head on home. Hope you enjoyed the hike. Hope to see you soon. Bye.